Alright, today we're going to do the PRS Northern Lights series, and with this type of stain that you see, you need to get a really highly figured piece of wood. I found this piece of maple sitting in my pile. It's got some great figure, but it's got a lot of strong grain lines running through it. So I know it's some sort of combination of blue and purple, and I'm going to try a purple base here with my Angelus leather dyes, and then I'm going to try a blue base with my Angelus leather dyes. And I'm not even going to sand back, I just want to see what the combination looks like, if there's a difference. My hunch is that you go with the purple base first, and then the blue secondary. And even right here I can tell this is a light blue stain on a heavily figured piece of maple. And I can tell that it's definitely a purple and a blue versus a blue and a purple, because the purple just covers the blue. You can see that here pretty easily. You need the darker base and then the lighter color on the front or on the top. And they look sort of similar, but when I really examined it, it's definitely purple base with a lighter blue top. So the first thing we're going to do here is get my purple. This is Angelus leather dye purple. You can purchase Angelus dyes in the link above in the description. I am using these exclusively now. So the back of this guitar is ash, and I've got this heavily figured piece of maple. And what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and apply this as thick as we can. And what was really interesting about this piece of wood is it really soaked up the dye. Usually I get a little bit more play with the dye, meaning it stays more on the rag than in the wood. But for some reason this piece of wood really sucked up the dye, and I had to apply a lot more than I thought. So I've got, like I said, an ash back. We'll go ahead and apply the purple on the front and the back. We're going to do the Northern Lights on both the front and the back. And the ash is just a standard piece of ash, northern ash, and I just drilled some holes to lighten it up. I didn't actually add any tonal chambers or anything like that. I just took a drill press with an inch bit and just bored some holes to lighten it up. And with ash is an open grain wood, and you got to get in the pores really heavily. So I went back and forth again with a lot of dye to get this to look right. Then we'll come back with my Makita sander here, and we'll layer down with the sander. This is 320 grit, and we're going to just sand that first top coat off. And you can see the dye sort of turned the wood brown, and as I'm sanding I get a lot more purple to show. And then we'll start with the light blue. So I took the light blue from before and I added about 50% of the neutral to thin it. I've tried denatured alcohol and isopropyl alcohol and they haven't worked out, so I figured I'd try their neutral. And then I poured it into this little cup. And let's see if we can get the midnight blue here to pop. Or Northern Lights. That's pretty much spot on. Holy smokes. Of course, when PRS does this, they have a perfectly 5A piece of wood. This has got all the flames that you want, but it's not perfect. So it won't be as consistent as theirs. But this is definitely Northern Lights-ish. I figured to go with the darker purple first, and then add a diluted blue on top, because it didn't make sense to me to add a dark blue with a purple over, since then you've got two Too much darkness. I'm trying to give you guys a different camera angle here. It's definitely one of the better two-tone effects I've seen. And depending on how much you sand and how much you keep, you get it to have a lot of different color coming through. Surprised at how much dye is being soaked up by this piece of wood, actually. I noticed that with the purple, that this piece of wood really drinks up the dye, which is a huge surprise to me. Sanded it down to 600. So what we're doing is we're just going to keep going back and forth here with the colors. Surprisingly, I'm not pulling a lot of purple out. This is a lot of blue on the rag. A couple spots that need some help, especially right here. So this is close, but there's a little bit too much blue that I put on. It's a little blotchy. So I'm going to get some steel wool and just clean this up a little bit. Using steel wool as a trick here, I can actually see a lot better figure coming out now. You can see how much better this looks, and I'm pulling out a lot of color. So I looked up on Pinterest a bunch of different Northern Lights guitars, and they're all a little bit different in coloring. They're not all the same. Some are more blue, some are more purple. Just depends on how the stain goes into the wood. But this is pretty cool. I tested out purple and rose before on a scrap piece and just let it sit, and then PRS came out with this, which is pretty awesome. This is one of the better color schemes I've seen. When I had my buddy hit this with a high gloss, this will look outstanding. You can see there's a little bit too much color on the side here. And as I use the steel wool, the figure looks just great. I'm actually applying a decent amount of pressure here to get this off. I go with the highest grade steel wool because I don't want to scratch. I have to definitely do this on the sides too, because there's too much color on the sides. We got some 600 grit and we'll sand this off. One of the guys commented that his purple had turned a little bit brown, and I think that's because just too much dye. Once I sand this back, it'll be a little bit less purple, but I can see for sure too much dye of purple leads to a brown. I will come back now with the diluted blue. I've got half light blue and half of the Angelus dilution. Some sort of alcohol, don't know which one.
Picking up a lot of purple here. And ash is sometimes a little bit hard to dye. So I've got some nice purple edge, probably from where the dust was. It's funny, usually you don't see the brush strokes here from this, but in ash you definitely see it. So this will definitely be a candidate to use the steel wool on again. But I still get that same Northern Lights effect, just a little bit different figure. This wood is eating up my rag. I don't really want to add any more blue. So I think I'm just going to leave it. Once I hit it with the steel wool, I'll get a little bit of a different effect. But I love the coloring sort of just fading in and out, especially against the patterns of the ash here. So what I'll do on the back is use a wipe-on poly and just seal the back and the sides. And the front, I'll get my buddy to do it with a two-part automotive finish, and I'll do a video with a couple videos with him. He's got a great finishing setup. Alright, so I hit the body with this Mohawk pre-catalyzed sanding sealer. I don't know what it is about this sanding sealer, but it's one of the best I've ever used. For some reason I can't find sanding sealer that I really like, but this one works really nice. You can see the beautiful deep dark figure here, and then on the back side it looks outstanding. Really a neat product. We'll send this out and do part 2, hitting a clear with Rodney, and see what he can show us out of his shop. So thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next vid here.